Hello and welcome back to our study of Peninei Halacha, the teachings of Rav Eliezer Melamed, Shlita. We find ourselves here on Yom Shilishi, Pa'amayim Kitov. Thank you again for joining us. Please continue davening for Chaylei Tzvah Gana Yisrael, Refuah Shlom L'Chol Petzu'ei Yisrael, and a safe return of all of our hostages, as the process has begun, hopefully, but let's see it to its completion. Let us hope and pray. Dedicate our learning Le'ilei Nishmat, Saren Daniel Shimon, and Rav Drom Sheli Shemekam Damo. So, continuing at the long list of Tefillah, the next chapter is Tefillah Same Shel Ha'avos V'Hanaviyim. Lamadi b'Tanach, Shebechol Eish She'avos V'Hanaviyim Yitzruchu Le'azara Ha'yuponim Al Hashem B'Tefillah. So we learn in Tanakh that any instance, or there was any time when our avos, our forefathers, our patriarchs, matriarchs, the prophets, when they needed help, they would turn to Hashem in prayer. Avraham Avinu amad betfilah v'hischanen al Sodom shelo techarav. Avraham Avinu, he stood in prayer and he supplicated to Hashem that Sodom should not be destroyed. V'anehu Hashem, and Hashem answered, Shem yu Hashem asara tzadikim Sodom tinatzel. And Hashem answered, of course, we know the exchange in Parshas Vayera, that Hashem said if there are 10 righteous people, then Sodom would be saved. And of course, as we know, there were not 10 tzaddikim, 10 righteous people, and Sodom was destroyed. Yitzchak Avinu v'Rivka imenu sheichol harayon hetir Hashem b'tfilah v'nifkedu v'nodol lahem Yaakov Esav. We learn in the beginning of Parshas Toldos, Yitzchak and Rivka were having difficulty in childbirth and having children, and then finally Hashem answered them. They each turned to Hashem separately. It says each in his or her own corner. And they were answered, and of course, Yaakov and Esav were born. Yaakov Avinu hispel Hashem sheyatzil miyad achiv Esav sheba keneged ba'arba meos lochamim. The beginning of Parshas Vayishlach, we see that Yaakov davened to Hashem that he should save him from the hand of his brother Esav, who wanted to strike him with his 400 soldiers that were with him. V'ne'enev v'nitzel, and of course, he was answered and he was saved. Achar chet ha'egel. After the story of the golden calf, this week is Parshas Bo, so coming up not too far away in Parshas Kisisa, the story of the golden calf. So Allah Charon Af Keneged Yisrael, Hashem, of course, was angry with the Jewish people. Moshe Rabbeinu Hirba B'Tfilos Ad Shenicham Hashem L'Rasha Dibur Lasos Lamo. Moshe Rabbeinu, he had a tremendous amount of prayer that took place. It's what we read on the fast aids, and it says that Hashem changed his mind of what he wanted to do to the nation. Ushe Nitztara'a Miriam Achoso, and in the end of Parshas Bahalosecha, when Miriam, Moshe's sister, was afflicted with tsaras, Amad v'hispalel, kel na refana Allah, the simple 5-word prayer, where he said, Hashem, please heal her. V'nir pa'ah, and she was indeed healed. Aharon hispal al yidei ha'ketoris, Aharon HaKohen, he used the ketoris, the incense, as a form of tefillah, v'netra magefa, and the plague, this is in Bamidbar, Perek Yud Zayin. Achar hamapela mul ha'ai, nafal Yoshua panav hispalel. After the incident at Ai in Sefer Yehoshua, it says Yehoshua fell on his face and he davened, v'Hashem aneh v'hidrich l'saken es chet Achan, and Hashem directed him to repair the chet, the sin of Achan, v'achar kach nitzech, and then they were victorious in battle. That's the 7th chapter of Yehoshua. U'kashe'olu plishtim l'melchama Yisrael zak Shmuel Hashem v'anei Hashem v'ik Yisrael es plishtim v'hichniyum. In the beginning of Shmuel Aleph, we're told that when the Philistines rose and to do war against the Jewish people, Shmuel cried out to Hashem, the prophet Samuel. Hashem answered him, and they were able to defeat the Plishtim. David Melech Yisrael Haya Marbe Ma'od B'Tfilas Al Hashem. King David, of course, he had many, many prayers towards Hashem. Utfilosav Heim Sefer Tehillim, and much of his prayer is found in the book of Psalms. La'achar Shesiyam Shlomo HaMelech of Nosas Beis HaMikdash. When Shlomo HaMelech, King David's son, King Solomon, when he finished building the Beis HaMikdash, he spal Shetisha Ba HaShechina. He had a tefillah that the prayer of Hashem's presence should dwell within them, and that all the prayers that are directed towards the holy temple, the Beis HaMikdash, should be accepted. And as the 8th and 9th chapter of Malachim Aleph tells us, Hashem answered and received his prayers. And the great showdown at Mount Carmel with Eliyahu Hanavi and the prophets of the Baal, Eliyahu prayed that the fire should come down from heaven, and he was answered. Elisha Hanavi Elisha also davened Hashem that Hashem should revive this child of the Shunammite woman, Vayel Chazal Chaim, and as we're told in the 4th chapter of Malach and Beis, the child was revived. Chizkiah HaMelech, also when he was on his deathbed and he was davening to Hashem that he shouldn't die, and he was answered, and of course he was healed. But one of the tefillahs that really makes its mark on all the generations is the prayer of Chana. For many years she was barren, and we're told that she increased and had many supplications and prayers in the Mishkan, which was in Shiloh at the time. And she's the first that turned to Hashem and used the term tzivakos. And this is the Haftorah that we read on Rosh Hashanah. And of course she was answered, and her son ultimately became the prophet Samuel. Al Shmuel HaNavi Amru Shahaya Shakol Kamoshe Aharon. Shmuel HaNavi is compared to be on the same level as Moshe and Aharon. We say it every week in Kabbalah Shabbos. Moshe Abar B'Kohanam Shmuel B'Karei Shemo. Shal Yadam Hiskala Dvar Hashem Metias Hanisis Al Yonah Shalom Midbar. Because Hashem, His word and His presence was really exposed to the world in a miraculous fashion in what happened in the desert through Moshe and Aaron. And through Shmuel, the word of Hashem was experienced tangentially to the Jewish people in the land of Israel. He concretized and solidified the nation, and the kingship of the house of David arose, and then ultimately the Beis HaMikdash was built as a result of his actions. And since he was such a tremendous soul and so elevated, so such a great soul was hard to just bring down to the world the way we understand it, and therefore he needed great tefillah, which was the tefillah of Chana, that she could finally merit to bring this precious soul into the world. And the Gemara in Brachas and Daf Lamed Aleph tells us that her tefillah was so great, her prayer was so great, that we learned so many different halachas from the way that she prayed. And again, if you look at the Gemara there, it's in Brachas Daf Lamed Aleph, we have many, the structure of tefillah is designed and derived from the tefillah of Chana. So tefillah, as we see historically, extremely important and serves as the basis for the prayers that we have today. So thank you so much for joining us. Please continue davening for Chaylei Tzva B'nai Yisrael, for Shalom L'chol P'tzuvei Yisrael, safe return of all of our hostages. Learning L'ilei Nishmat Saren Daniel Shemin Rav Drum V'Shalei Shem Kundamo. So appreciate you joining us today. Have a great day. We'll see you here next time.